So my name is Scott O'Brien. I'm from London. I was originally born in Essex, but I lived in London since the age of 5. I grew up in Romford, in East London. I went to a Catholic school in East London. It's quite a rough school. It was in Becontree Heath. It's no longer there. Yeah, it was. My parents split up when I was young. When I was around about 7 years old. I was brought up mainly by my mother, and we lived in a council estate in Romford. It was quite a tough area. We weren't very rich. We was quite poor. But it was a loving family. My mum was extremely loving. She brought me up in a loving atmosphere. I went to a school which is, even though it was in quite a poor area and a rough area, and had low academic achievements coming from the school, they tried to instill good values into the pupils, and I think I was receptive to that. As I was growing up, I was brought up a Catholic, but my parents I think they were nominal Catholics. They were Catholic in name, they would go to church only for weddings or for baptisms or funerals. But I went to this a Catholic school, and they encouraged me to go to church. And that's when I around about the age of 13, 14, I started finding out about God and who God was. And I think the church instilled in me a good sense of who God was. And they gave me a good sense of spirituality, which I've carried on for the rest of my life. Leaving school, I didn't know what to do when I was about 16, 17. I know went on, when I was attached to the church, I went to a place in south of France called Lourdes, which is a pilgrimage site. And over there I worked in the hospitals, and I was helping the elderly. We took elderly from our diocese, our church, to the pilgrimage. And I met a nurse when I was over there, and we started talking, and I was really interested in his job, and it was a job about caring for people, for nurturing people, for talking to people, and I felt an affinity towards that. So I had this feeling had this sense of values instilled in me from the school and from the church. Had a strong belief in God, and I wanted to help people. So at the age of 16, I made a choice to become a nurse. I took my A-levels and I entered nursing when I was about 19, and I trained as a children's nurse. I think it was a tough area. It was, you had to be mentally and physically strong. I think I went to an all-boys Catholic school in London. As an all-boys school, people in other schools wanted to wanted to fight us, and the school had a reputation to maintain. The boys in the school had a reputation to maintain. And so we had I'll give you an example. We had a gang in our school, and our school was Bishop Ward. So we had a gang called the Bishop Ward Destruction Firm, so the BWDF. And in my first year, my very first week, I was in school. A group of this gang took the RE teacher, the religious education teacher, into the maths classroom, and they all tied their ties into a noose and tried hanging him from the ceiling from it. But unfortunately, it was one of those suspended ceilings, so the ceiling collapsed before anything disastrous happened to him. So that was an idea of what my school was like. It was, we had an organised gang, and we had it was tough when you went to school. We were banned from all sporting events for 5 years, so we weren't allowed to play other schools at sporting events because there was a football match and someone took a gun to the football match and shot it in the air. I think it was at a probably an air pistol or whatever, but the police were involved, and no one wanted to play our school any sports anymore, so we were banned from that. And with that, you had if I took the wrong, I took the wrong. Had detention one day, so I was late coming out of school, and because I had my school uniform on, people knew what school I went to. I had a few times of people trying to fight me on the back of the bus. So what we used to do, we used to have our badge, our school blazer. So we used to just put on 3 little knots onto it. So on the way home, you'd be able to just pull it off, pull it in your pocket, take your tie off, and then you're just a generic schoolboy, and no one knew that you came from Bishop Ward. But if you kept it on, people would see that as a target, and because you were a rough school, and people thought you were rough, and they wanted to fight you to prove a point. But to say that, it's a bit distorted, because the school was good and there were good teachers there. And they were, we had a very good headmaster who did try to instill good sense of values in the boys who went there, and they were good. All the boys in my school were very good. It was just they grew up in poverty and they knew nothing else. There was no, if you grew up in poverty in East London, there's not many ways out for you. If you go to, these children will never go to Oxford and never go to Cambridge. These kids will end up scraping through, getting their maybe 1 or 2 GCSEs, and having no qualification, will end up getting money how they get money. So I think it's a fault of the system rather than the fault of the school. I think it was just a rough area because there wasn't that much money and it wasn't an affluent area. My mum's a saint. My mum's fantastic. She's got a heart as big as anyone I know, and she's always a giving person. But she had to work. She had 3 jobs when we was growing up. She would leave early in the morning, do a cleaning job, and then she would go to her normal job. And after that, she would do a cleaning job in the evening. She worked incredibly hard for us, and yes, I mean, my brother and I would come home from school and we'd make our own dinner because my mum wasn't there. But everything what my mum had, she gave to my brother and I. And again, we learned so much. Well, I still do learn so much from my mum. The way she's just incredibly giving. This self-sacrifice for her family. She makes sure that love is not just a word, but love is actions. So my mum worked incredibly hard, and I'm always appreciative of that. The church gave me a sense of spirituality. The Catholic Church is a very spiritual place, and they teach you this. I felt I was taught more about who God was, what God was, this God of love, this God of compassion, through the church. I think it's easy to criticize what the church is because it's a big organization and it has a hierarchy and it has a structure and there's abuses within those hierarchies and structure. But if you take, that's the human side of the church, where when you put people involved, people are corrupt by nature. But the church itself, the spirituality is pure. And so it taught me who God was, this God of compassion. And I think I needed that when I was growing up. I needed that sense of, there's someone out there looking after me. I needed to feel comfortable. I used to remember saying my prayers every single night and having that communion with God and talking to him and all my probably my angst as I was growing up, I could talk to him about it, and I would get answers from him. He would talk to me back, and I felt that warmth and I felt that love from him. So I didn't feel a part. I didn't feel part of the crowd when I was growing up. I didn't feel this was right for me. I never knew. I always felt I didn't want to grow up having a couple of GCSEs and turning into a life of crime or into, just scraping by in life. I wanted to help people. So I purposely kept myself apart from probably the rougher elements around, and had a small group of close friends. And I used to go to church, and I used to be involved with the church. I used to be involved with the, taking people to pilgrimages. I used to be an altar boy when I was growing up. So I deliberately chose a different path, and I think the church was there. It was a great atmosphere to actually say there is a second choice in life. You don't have to follow the crowd. You can be good, and you can follow your natural good instincts in life. And I think the church gave me that, and it gave me that spirituality from that, which I'm, internally grateful for it. My father is a socialist, is an ardent socialist, and he instilled in me the point that where the church gave me a community to help the community, my father as a socialist would say that, we as a state should be helping all the poorest in the land. And he was an ardent believer in the NHS, free healthcare for all, and then ardent believer in education, free education for all, because this is how you improve society. So going from that, I had these principles in me to go, to go help people, to go wanting to improve society, not to be just part of society, but to actually improve society, improve the living conditions and the health of all the people around me. It probably sounds more saintly than what it is. I mean, I was a 16-year-old boy, and I still did 16-year-old boy things. I did. I think that's the contradiction in my life. When at that age, I still went out, and at that age, I was drinking with my friends, or I was, doing other things as well. And I think at the age of 16 as well, I did go off to, up to the age of 16, I was genuinely, trying to do my best. I think at the age of 16, I was tempted by the world, and I went out and sampled the world until I was about 18. And then I felt that, when you go out and sample what you think are the delights of the world, it's quite a vacuous state. There's nothing there to fill you up. When I used to go to church, I used to come home feeling whole and filled, and feeling really good about myself. And when I was my 16 years, my 16th birthday, and I used to be going out to my friends, going to nightclubs and other places. I was filling my life with meaningless, what I thought were, filling up with, drink and other things, because I thought these are what I was meant to be doing at the age of 16. And the delights were only short term, but the long term effects was that I was losing stuff within me. I was becoming more empty in myself. And I felt that, and I think I was about 18, I felt this emptiness inside of me, where as I was before when I was 16, 15, I felt quite full when I went to church, and I felt quite sated, for want of a better word. I was filled up with love. I felt genuinely happy with myself. When I was 18, I wasn't that happy, because I was substituting those for short-term enjoyment. So that's when I made another conscious decision to say, no, I need to pick another path. I need to go and do things that I feel that will help me spiritually. So this is when nursing came into my life, and nursing is a fantastic job. It's probably, to me, it's the best job in the world. I would never want to be in anything else but a nurse, because it's when you meet people at their most needy, and you're there to help them, and you're there to lend them a hand. You're there to, curing people is not just about giving them medicine. It is about taking that whole person and leading through a journey to, hopefully health, and talking to people. And I really enjoyed that. So I think